Hi, Dr. Justin Feldman here, Feldman Physical Therapy and Performance, and we're going to talk a little bit today about shin pain. If you have shin pain, don't worry, you are not alone, especially if you're a runner or jumper, somebody who participates in a bunch of higher level impact activities. Shin pain is very common, and we're going to try and demystify it a little bit for you here today. So I will admit I was a little hesitant to make a video about shin pain. We've had a couple people comment on some other videos. We've had a couple people request some information about shin pain and specifically shin splints. And I'll tell you, the thing that made me a little bit concerned with making a video focusing on shin pain is that shin pain can generally be broken down into a couple of different sources, shin splints being one of them. The other one is stress fractures or bone stress injury in the shins. And that is not something that you want to play around with or try and treat on your own by watching a video or getting information. That is something that you definitely would need to consult a professional, have some imaging done, really go through a good complete history and figure out what's going on. And so please, we're going to go through, we're going to talk about the different things you could maybe do to try and determine which category you might fall in, but please take this whole video with a grain of salt. Understand that bone stress injuries or stress fractures are probably way more common than we know or than we think. And so while you may think, there's no way that's me, I definitely just have shin splints, approach it with an open mind. And if you think you might fall into some of the things we talk about, potentially being a bone stress injury, then please go see somebody before you try and do any of this treatment on your own. Okay, so we want to try and give you some tools here to rule out a stress fracture. What I want you to think about is, how does the pain or what you're feeling behave as you start to warm up and get into your run? A stress fracture is going to tend to get a little bit more painful as you run. It's going to become a little bit more diffuse, or the pain's going to spread a little bit as you run. And then when you stop, the pain will persist. So it's not going to just go away when you stop running. And it will tend to be a little bit more localized to a more specific area once you're not running. Shin splints, on the other hand, will actually tend to get a little bit better as you warm up. One of the things we see with shin splints is that they don't feel so great. As you start to run, they're going to sort of get a little bit worse. And then as you get warm, they're going to get a little bit better, bother you less. Also, when you stop running, you shouldn't have pain at rest with a shin splint, okay? If you feel like you fall into any of the earlier things and it might potentially be a stress fracture or you're not sure, don't even continue on with this video. Please go get checked out. Once you've 100% ruled out that it might be a stress fracture or a bone stress injury, then let's talk about what you can do for some shin splints. If you know and you're saying to me, no, it gets better when I warm up, pain goes away at rest, I've got shin splints, then give these things a try, but no, this is very much not a black and white area. And so if you do this for a couple of weeks and you're not making progress, then this is something I really want you to go get checked out by a professional, see somebody, and just make sure you're headed down the right path. Okay, now what do we want to do for your shin splints? First thing we do when someone comes into the clinic and we think they might be dealing with some shin splints, we need to talk about your training history and how you got to this point. Shin splints and bone stress injuries, or stress fractures for that matter, are both normally a training load error. What we mean by that is you have either increased your mileage or the stress on the area a little bit too fast, okay? Or maybe you added in another variable. So with running, we will tend to see this when you either increase your mileage a little faster than you might be used to, or you increase the intensity of your workouts. So if you maybe are used to running 15, 20 miles a week, you're still running 15, 20 miles a week, but all of it is on hills, or all of it becomes track or a speed work or something to that effect, then sometimes we'll see this. The other thing we see is if you are a runner who has suddenly decided that you really want to get into some plyometric work, which is fine, but you add in a little bit too much too soon, and now the cumulative load of that plyometric work with your running has led to some forces that your body's not able to adapt to, and that's why you're getting the shin pain or the shin splints. And so when it comes to treatment, the first thing we need to do is we have to figure out that variable that caused it to come on. So sit down, look through your mileage. If you have a Garmin or a smartwatch or something like that that tracks it, look through the graphs that come in there and see if you had a little bit of a peak right before the pain started. And we got to get you to back off of that mileage or that intensity so that we can let this calm down and get you back into training. Okay, once we've got your mileage sorted out and that intensity sorted out, the next thing we're going to take a look at is I really want to take a look at what you are doing with a couple of different variables. The first thing being your running form, style, technique, whatever you want to call it. I want to watch you run, and I want to make sure you're not doing two things. I want to make sure you haven't made a sudden change to your form. So if someone says, oh, I really read a book, my buddy told me that I heel strike too much and I've decided to change my form and technique, and we start to see this onset of shin splints, then we know that maybe your new form is just not for you, or you haven't actually changed what you thought you changed. The other thing we want to watch out for is overstriding. Sometimes we'll see shin pain develop if somebody is either overstriding in trying to cover too much ground with each stride, or developing more of a bounding gait instead of really turning your feet over quick enough. And so this is somewhere that we're gonna try and get people to play around with their cadence a little bit. And I wanna know what your cadence is, and then I wanna know where it's been over time. So what's great with all these smart devices, we can look back and see if maybe your cadence suddenly decreased, if something changed. And we want to get you to bump your cadence up a little bit, because if we can get you to bump your cadence up, that's going to allow us to decrease some of the forces on your legs and let your body recover as you go through. You'll notice we're not talking about telling you not to run. As long as we're confident that someone's dealing with shin splints versus a bone stress injury, I want to keep them running a little bit, and I want to try and make some adaptations to what they're doing to allow them to continue running. Every runner knows you hate to hear that dreaded stop running, rest advice. And so we want to do our best to keep people running through this, but we got to make a couple changes in order to do it. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to jump into a couple exercises, but before we do that, I want you to go and take a look, and I'm going to throw some links in here for videos that we've made for knee pain, where we talk about trying to get into a higher cadence and shorten your stride a little bit, because I think that'll be a good reference point for people trying to deal with some shin pain as well. So jump in there and take a look at that. I'm also going to throw a link here for an exercise video we made dealing with toe yoga or toe flexibility, toe dexterity, and building foot strength. The video was specifically, we were focusing on plantar fasciitis. However, a lot of the same exercises are great for anybody dealing with shin pain. So take a look at the video on the knee stuff, dealing with altering your gait. Take a look at the video on the foot stuff, and now we're going to jump into some exercises specifically geared towards your shins. The first exercise we like to get people starting with is a gentle stretch, or just a little bit of an activation of the muscles in the front of their shin. The way I like to do this is I want you to get down into a deep squat, okay? And then as you're down there, I want you to pull your toes up in your shoes, okay? As if you're trying to get them to come out of the tops of your shoes. Now, you can hold on to something if you want as you go down, okay? You don't have to be balancing there. It's not a balance exercise or a balance drill, and I like you to hold this for 2 minutes, okay? something that you want to do periodically throughout the day, but definitely something you want to be doing right before you run as a warm-up before you run. Exercise number 2, we're going to play with some single leg calf raises. So I've got a stack of weights over here and a little pad. You could basically use anything. You could use a chair, you could use whatever is easily laying around. And what we want you to do here is 1 foot up. I like to go hands behind your head, and I want you rising straight up in the air. We're looking for 25 of those on each side. I want you to think while you're doing these and make sure that you're pivoting over your first toe joint. Your foot might want to roll out to the side and kind of put a little more weight on the outside of your foot. I want you to really pay attention to make sure you're getting onto that first toe joint while you're doing it. Next up is an old favorite, the creep walk. We've had this in a couple of different routines we've thrown up here. If you haven't gotten it down, you haven't played with it too much, what you're going to do is you're going to go feet about shoulder width apart, just rise slightly up on the balls of your feet, okay? I want you to be just a little bit elevated with your heels. We don't need to be all the way up on your toes, but I don't want your feet to be your heels to be on the ground. And you're just going to come there and we're just going to walk around, okay? And so it doesn't have to be a pattern to the way you're walking, but I just want you to walk around, move through, and your goal here is to do it for about a minute or two, take a break, and then repeat it. Over time, this should become pretty easy, and you should feel comfortable using those muscles to control your position without needing to rise up on your toes or let your heels rest down on the ground. For our last exercise, you need a little prop. I want you to grab a ball about the size of a softball or a grapefruit. You could even roll up a towel or something like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to drop it down and you're going to hold it between your heels. Okay, so we got the ball between our heels. You're going to grab, squeeze in, and then we're going to go up on your toes. And what I want you to make sure is as you go up, same idea as when we were doing the calf raises before. I don't want you to let your foot roll to the outside. I want you to keep it nice and stable over your big toes, keeping that ball in there. You might feel the ball want to drop out. You got to hold on to it. When you're holding the ball, make sure we're not holding it low down in your heels. I want you to hold it up just a little bit, right between those 2 bones that bump out of the inside of your ankles. And then it's just up and squeeze. That's what we got for shin splints or shin pain. Remember, please, if you feel like you might fall into that stress reaction, stress fracture category, go get that checked out by a professional. It doesn't mean you're never going to run again or do anything like that, but we'd really hate to have somebody miss that and go through a while of trying to treat this on their own when seeing somebody could greatly speed up the process for you. Now, if you found this helpful, please go ahead, hit that like button down there, subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate all of the support feedback we've been getting on here, and keep the comments coming. Let us know what you want to see. This video is a direct production of a request somebody had sent in, so anything you're interested in, anything we can help educate you on, we'd love to do it. So throw something down there and we'll try and get it made for you. And have a good one. We'll see you soon.